Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the long-awaited Gambit from X-Men in the Marvel Legends line. This is part of the Caliban Build-A-Figure wave, and just about everybody who collects Marvel Legends has been wanting a new Gambit since the last one came out, because the last one that came out, while it was good at the time, it was soon realized that it looked like anorexic salmonella. So this is going to be a really nice release for pretty much everyone who collects the line, despite its flaws. And it does have some flaws. It does some things very nicely. We're going to talk about both of those things so you can make an informed decision if you're not just going to pick it up regardless. If you actually want to know if it's any good, I'm going to tell you. So let's go ahead and get this guy off the stand and take a closer look. And this guy stands roughly about 6 3/4 inches. The hair probably poofs up just a bit past that. That's going to make him just about 17 centimeters. So he is relatively tall for a Marvel Legends figure. He's taller than the average build, but not exceptionally tall. So I guess it'll be okay. He's probably a bit bigger than he should be. But, you know, once you pose him at even a little tiny bit, it'll be fine. So no worries there. As far as the aesthetics go, I guess we'll do a quick comparison, though it's relatively fruitless to do this. Here's the recent Revoltech release, which had its own slew of problems. You can see they're almost the same size. This guy's legs are spread a little bit, so that's pretty close. And I'll put a photo at the end so you can see him a little bit better. But this guy costs a whole lot more, has a couple of really nice things about him, but then a couple of garbagey things about him. So yeah, they're not really comparable. You're not going to interchange the Revoltech for the Marvel Legends because the price point's not even close. It's like 4 times as much money, maybe 3. Anyway, it has the pinkish purple kind of pearlescent plastic, which is fine, except it is somewhat translucent. You can see the inner workings on his pecs. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that on camera, but in real life you can see in there a little bit, so that's a bit of a bummer. It's not super noticeable because it is metallic on the outside, so it kind of reflects the light, but it is worth mentioning that this is a painted piece. It does not match, so that's pretty much a big distraction from the figure looking good. The leg things are painted to match the belty crotch piece. That's fine. I do wish they were a little bit nicer, a little more saturated. They're kind of pale. So it's like they just didn't do a real great job of that. As far as the collar piece goes, it's in a kind of pearly blue, just like the chest. That's fine. They went with the option of just making the chest pattern all over the place crazy rather than making it an actual pattern. That drives me nuts. I know they have drawn him that way. I've always hated that too. That's a personal thing. If you don't mind it like this, and that's perfectly fine. But for my sensibilities, I wanted the classic pattern on his chest. That would have been much better for me, but this is technically acceptable, so that's just my own personal note there. But they did a good job with that. There's no rim around the top, which is typical. I mean, they have drawn it that way a lot, so I can't fault it for that either. But again, I prefer it when it does have it, but that's, again, very personal. The boots, same material. His legs are incredibly skinny, and I know they always draw Gambit's legs to be slender, even with the boots on. But these legs don't even look like legs. Like, they have the totally wrong anatomy. They have the inner calf muscle here, then the outer calf muscle is just not there at all. His legs look really, really janky, like very anorexic. Like Gollum could be wearing those boots if Gollum had skinnier legs than he normally has. It's just kind of a disappointing look. They did a good job with the lines on it though, like that's fine, but his upper body's relatively thick for being a more slender build, especially since they put the jacket on him. I thought for sure they'd go with a more slender build, but they made it kind of broad for being a skinny build, so it's a little odd that they made the legs so narrow and then the chest relatively thick. And then of course the jacket makes everything else look thick because you can't help that. So it just looks a little bit weird. It's not terrible. I think most people won't care, but it is worth mentioning that he has relatively strange proportions. I mean, when I picked that up, his legs are very scrawny looking. So it's just kind of a bummer. And then the head, I mean, I've heard some people say it's too big, and it only looks that way because the legs are too small. The head, the upper body actually fits itself nicely. Like, that's fine. But then you throw the legs in there, and it looks kind of like a kit bash, which is a little bit weird. I don't care for that a whole lot. And then the face, a lot of people have said, well, the face looks terrible, and they're pretty much right. It does. It's not shaped like a human head at all, really. And then the chin is huge, so that's a bummer. And then there's really no place for his skull. There's just hair coming out of the top of that thing, which is a little bit weird. There's no head shape to his head. It's very flat on the sides. And then the face is really big for the shape of the head. It's just all around. It's like very juvenile attempt at sculpting, I guess. It's really strange that this happened from a company that has $1 billion zillion. and all kinds of sculptors and contracts and things. Very weird. Then the last thing for the aesthetics I have to mention is that the main jacket is mostly flat. It's mostly a flat finish. And then the sleeves are very glossy. So that looks stupid. It almost looks like a totally different piece. Like it's not supposed to be connected, even though it is. So again, it's like Hasbro just didn't give a crap at all about making this. It's not terrible. None of the things I pointed out are absolutely detrimental, but they are things that you will notice if you want to notice them. So that's a bummer. Like if you're looking for a solid figure, a really good figure, you're going to see these problems and you're going to be slightly disappointed. Me personally, I really like Gambit, and this is by far better than the original one, so I'm happy enough to have this, but those things all do exist. You have to decide if they're enough of a problem for you to make a difference. For me personally, I'm going to stick them on a shelf and be happy enough, but I am definitely bummed out about those issues. So for aesthetics, I'm going to give this guy only a 6 out of 10. Too many issues. Too many little issues add up to not a good situation. It's not as bad as it looked originally, though, I will give it that. As far as accessories go, we have 3. We do have his power pole, which is segmented and as good as you would expect it to be. We have 1 charged card accessory with no paint on it at all, which is definitely a bummer. I could see them not wanting to paint the card face itself because that's too expensive, but at least a little bit of shading to make the card darker or something would have been cool. At least it is nice and translucent. Then the last accessory is an interchangeable left hand with thrown cards, and again, no paintwork on the card parts at all, which looks kind of cheap, and the hand looks pretty good, but holy crap, how did they screw up this kind of thing again? Apparently when you throw cards with a swooshy effect, the swoosh leads your hand. Why is there a phallic swoosh sticking past his hand? That makes no sense at all. The swoosh has to start from the hand. It is the trail coming from the hand when you throw the cards. And they put the swoosh in front of the hand. How do you do that? Who designed this? How does this keep happening? Dumb stuff like this should not be happening from a company with multiple people working on things. Somebody should have noted that. Like, hey, dumbass, the swoosh has to trail from the hand. Also, it's very phallic. Change it. But they didn't. So accessories on this guy, 6 out of 10. Nothing good. Some things that are okay. Alright, time for the articulation. The head is on your standard Marvel Legends ball peg with a hinge, but it has this weird notching where it's either up or it's down. There's no in between. Luckily, when it's up, it's so loose on the ball peg that it can kind of move around, but it doesn't want to stay ever because it's so loose. And when it's down, you don't have any options. So that's a thing. You can make him look up if you want, and that'll kind of wedge in. So I guess that's okay. And then rotation, of course, is side to side, but the head's still very loose. It's like got no resistance at all, so that's a bummer. No attitude. Shoulders work nicely all the way out to the side. Full rotation, bicep swivel, single jointed elbow, which is better than 90 degrees, and I'll take it for the jacket. That's fine. It does have an extra rotation in there too. That's cool. Wrist swivel and a hinge. This is a good hand for holding the card this way. It's not good for anything else. So that's a bummer. We don't have any fist hands or anything else. So we have very specific posing options with this guy, which is also kind of a detriment. One good thing they did is for the gripping hand for the pole, they used a vertical hinge, which is absolutely necessary for this kind of accessory if you want him to pose nicely, and they did that, so that's good. For the abdomen, we can lean him back. Oh, that's right, it doesn't work. It goes like the tiniest little bit, but doesn't go, and it's not because of the jacket, it's just not going. The sculpt is such that it doesn't go. So you can't lean him back. You can lean him forward, and I guess that's okay. I mean, the jacket's going to hide the ugly joint, so you can do that. I don't know how well anybody will be able to pose with that because it's kind of awkward, but it is there. Waist twist is fine. Hips do go pretty far forward. They do sling out to the side just a little bit, and then we can bring them out to the side about 45 degrees. We have a thigh swivel. I'd like to point out they used a pink peg for the hinge because on this side the pink was there, which got painted, so they painted it and then assembled it. Why not just assemble it first and then paint it? That way you can have a black peg and a pink end. Or paint it, assemble it, then put a little dab of paint on there. They just do everything as absolutely cheap as possible. Having a pink peg on that is stupid. It's, oh man, freaking Hasbro. The double jointed knees work nicely. I do like the knee joint, that's pretty good. There is a boot swivel, but they didn't even assemble it. I mean, the way they designed it, it can't be assembled properly. It's offset. I don't know how well that's going to show up because it's not by a lot. It's like maybe half a millimeter off. On both legs, they're kind of shifted at the joint, so that's kind of annoying. And then the feet do go all the way back, so that's good. And then all the way forward, that's good. Then you have a decent ankle rocker swivel hinge. So, you know, it's pretty average articulation, I guess. The head not working well is not okay, but everything else pretty much is. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for articulation. And now it's time for the final verdict of this guy. If it wasn't Gambit, people would not be okay with these problems, because there's a lot of cheapness about this figure. They kind of phoned it in. There's a lot of stuff that's mediocre, and a couple things that are good enough, but ultimately, if it wasn't Gambit, I don't think people would give a crap. Since it's Gambit, people are going to excuse them, and that's fine. That's totally up to you to do, but it's my job to point out the issues. Objectively speaking, this is only a mediocre figure, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 overall. Subjectively, I like it a lot more than that, just because it's Gambit and we needed a new Gambit, and it's good enough that I'll make it work, but objectively is what reviews are about, and that's why it gets only a 7 out of 10. So there it is, guys. Let me know what you think about this release, and we'll talk in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. I've got thousands of other reviews on the channel if you want to check those out. They're all organized in playlists for your benefit. And I have new videos just about every single day, so make sure you come back for that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.